The HOA president stood in the middle of my backyard holding her nose dramatically, while accusing my compost bins of poisoning the neighborhood air. Meanwhile, her husband's failing septic tank was literally leaking underground less than 50 feet away. The crazy part is she fined me 3 separate times before county inspectors finally discovered where the smell was actually coming from, and when they did, the entire neighborhood suddenly realized the woman blaming everyone else had been hiding the real problem on her own property. The entire Timmy name is Trevor Mills, and I moved into this neighborhood about 4 years ago after leaving city life behind. I wanted a quieter place with space for gardening, small projects, and a little bit of self-sufficiency. Nothing extreme, just a peaceful backyard with raised garden beds, fruit trees, and a compost setup that helped keep the soil healthy. For anyone who actually understands composting, properly maintained compost does not smell terrible. If anything, it smells earthy like fresh soil after rain. But our HOA president, Gloria, did not care about facts. She cared about appearances and complaints, even when the complaints were imaginary. Gloria acted like she personally owned the neighborhood. She drove around slowly every morning looking for violations. The way some people birdwatch trash cans visible for too long, grass, slightly uneven garden decorations. She personally disliked it. Everything became a problem eventually. At first she ignored my compost area because it stayed hidden behind fencing and landscaping, but then summer arrived. With summer came a horrible smell drifting through certain sections of the neighborhood. No, honestly, even I noticed it, not constantly but enough to know something was wrong somewhere nearby. The odor would come and go, especially during hot afternoons after heavy water usage around the block, but it definitely did not smell like compost. It smelled like sewage. Before this gets crazier, make sure you like and subscribe to Karen Stories Daily, because what started as petty HOA complaints eventually turned into one of the most embarrassing neighborhood investigations this community had ever seen. Instead of actually figuring out where the smell came from, Gloria instantly blamed me. Several residents mentioned garden smells during an HOA meeting, and somehow she decided my compost bins were responsible for everything. The next morning, I received my first violation notice. It claimed my compost operation created offensive biological odors, negatively impacting community enjoyment. I remember laughing out loud reading that sentence, because whoever wrote it clearly wanted to sound important. So I invited Gloria to inspect the compost area herself. A mistake. The second she stepped into my backyard, she started acting like she entered a toxic waste site, covering her nose dramatically, walking around complaining loudly while my actual compost bins smelled completely normally. Even opened one lid in front of her to prove there was no sewage odor coming from inside. But Gloria had already made up her mind, or maybe she needed a convenient target because she secretly knew the real smell was coming from somewhere else. At the time, I did not know about the septic issue yet, but looking back now, her behavior makes much more sense. A week later, another violation arrived along with a $300 fine. That is when I stopped trying to cooperate politely, because the smell kept getting worse, and it clearly was not connected to my property. Herbers started complaining openly during walks outside. Some said certain storm drains smelled horrible. Others mentioned wet patches appearing in yards near Gloria's side of the neighborhood. Own family even stopped letting their kids play near the common walking path because the odor became so strong. During afternoon, still Gloria kept blaming compost. She even sent HOA emails warning residents about improper organic waste management practices, like my little garden setup was causing environmental collapse. Then came the day everything changed. It had rained heavily the night before, and the next morning the smell became unbearable across almost the entire lower section of the neighborhood. Net compost smell, not garbage smell, straight sewaging. For the first time, residents stopped blaming gardens and started demanding actual inspections. Sanitation trucks arrived later that afternoon after multiple complaints were filed directly outside the HOA system, and the second those inspectors started checking drainage lines, Gloria suddenly looked more nervous than I had ever seen her before. By the next morning, the county inspection team was already working along the neighborhood drainage and utility lines, and within just a few hours they found something the HOA board clearly never expected. The smell was not coming from any garden compost system, not even close. It was coming from a failing septic system connected to Gloria's own property line extensiona system that had been slowly leaking underground for weeks, maybe even longer, when the inspectors explained it. In simple terms, the entire neighborhood went silent because suddenly all those complaints, all those emails, all those fines directed at me made absolutely no sense anymore. I was being blamed for a problem that was literally under the HOA president's own household infrastructure, and the worst part was the leak had been spreading gradually into shared soil and drainage pathways, which explained why different neighbors had been smelling it at different times. That is why it felt random, that is why it came and went, and that is why it never matched my compost area in the first place. Because it was not Manenet even remotely. Gloria stood there during the explanation trying to interrupt the inspectors multiple times, but they kept referring to official readings and underground line diagnostics. There was no arguing with data. One of the residents actually asked how long this had been going on, and the inspector calmly said signs of failure suggested months of gradual leakage. That word hit the neighborhood harder than anything else, because that meant all those fines, all those accusations, all that public blaming had been based on nothing but assumptions and personal bias. And now everyone knew it. Within days, the HOA emergency meeting was called, and for the first time, Gloria was not in control of the room. People were angry not just about the septic issue, but about how quickly she had targeted a single homeowner without investigation. Multiple neighbors spoke up, explaining how they had tried raising concerns about smells near the lower drainage area, only to be dismissed or ignored. That made everything worse for her, because now it was not just one mistake, it was a pattern of ignoring real issues while focusing on easy targets. The county issued compliance orders requiring immediate septic system repairs and environmental cleanup, and the HOA was forced to reverse all fines issued against me. Every single one. Refund notices alone caused more embarrassment for the board than the original violation ever did. After that, Gloria stopped showing up to meetings regularly, and when she did speak, she was noticeably quieter than before. Confidence was gone. Authority act was gone. Even the way she walked through the neighborhood changed. No more clipboard inspections, no more dramatic complaints about compost bins, just silences from my compost system. It was re-evaluated by the county and officially cleared as safe and properly maintained. In fact, one inspector even complimented the setup, saying it was one of the cleanest residential compost systems he had seen in a long time, which honestly felt like the quietest form of justice in the entire situation. Because the same system she tried to fine me for ended up being completely innocent from the start, and the real issue was something she had been standing next to the entire time without ever admitting it. No, whenever I see neighbors walking past my yard, there's no more confusion or complaints, just understanding, and sometimes even a little smile, like everyone remembers exactly how quickly assumptions can turn into embarrassment when nobody bothers to check the facts first. If you enjoyed this story from Karen Stories Daily, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share this video, and tell me honestly, have you ever been blamed for something that turned out to be completely someone else's problem?